Hello everyone, Gene Molina here from Natural Tennis Solutions. It's been a while. I'm back. We're going over our first principles of tennis. This is the arm, and are you a pusher or a puller? So what we're trying to understand with the arm here is, are we pushing our arm or are we pulling? So is it really pushing or pulling the arm? Or is it pushing and pulling the racket? So if you push the racket, or if you want to go even lower than that, push the grip, this is what the majority of tennis players do. So they take their racket back, and now they push the grip. So by me pushing this grip right now, this racket is traveling and staying even with my hand. It never lags behind. It's always traveling with my hand as I finish and follow through. That is pushing the ball. So you know how everyone calls a pusher a pusher? Well, that should kind of show you what a pusher is doing. So if you test out your own stroke and see if you're doing this, are you a pusher? The majority of us are. And that's because of tension, because we're tight. So when we push the grip, push the racket, we are making sure that our hand and our racket are together the whole time, and the racket never lags behind. So now, how do we get to the push part instead of, how do we get to the pull part instead of the push part? So the pulling part is where we have our racket ready to go forward, but instead we pull. So now as I'm pulling this grip, notice the difference between the pushing. So the pushing is this way, where my racket is going to square up with my wrist in the same position as it started, while when I am pulling, my wrist actually went back a little further as I started pulling. So it's like I want to leave the racket behind, I want to pull the grip, and now I'm pulling. So at some point, the racket does catch up to my hand at contact because I have pulled with a little bit of lag, right? That lag is created because I'm loosening up my wrist. So there's a guy out there named Patrick Mouratoglou, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and he is talking about the wrist in shots all the time and saying, let the wrist go, let the wrist go, let the wrist go. That's how we get looseness. I've tried so many different ways to get my arm to stay loose in match play, and it seems like the only way to do it is to let the wrist go. Feels like you're gonna lose complete control of everything, but in reality, if you're doing everything correctly, it should control everything. I know, it just doesn't make sense in the beginning, but as you get better at it, it gets better. So my wrist is moving here, and my wrist is not moving here. Pushing is when my wrist doesn't move. I'm just keeping it completely still. Pulling is when my wrist actually moves like a hinge. So when I pull and I go to make the racket go across, my arm actually loosens up a little bit more, and I'm actually going to get a little bit of lag, which is what I actually want, which is what we all want. We don't need professional lag, we just need a little bit, because that just means we're loosening our arm up. If we loosen our arm up, that means we are going to have less injury, and at some point we gain more control. It does take a little time to get used to trying to get that relaxed, to be able to let your wrist just go. But it is easier to do if you feel that you are pulling that grip. The push ends up too tense. The pull ends up letting everything go. So just to show you the difference between those two pieces, pushing the grip or the racket, whichever way you want to interpret it, or pulling the grip or the racket. It's really a lifestyle change at this point. It just becomes a whole different story when you start pulling and start realizing that that wrist joint is going to really make you feel looser and start making you actually hit the ball with a little bit more pop. So, questions, comments, let me know which one you are. Go out and practice and don't think about it. Just try to feel it and see what you're doing. If you're pushing, then you definitely want to start practicing the pull. If you're pulling, then congratulations, because now you're a step ahead, and then you could possibly move on to the next step where we learn how to use this at contact to square up the face and really be able to drive the ball, loop the ball, whatever we want. But the contact point is the most important part, and that's what we'll get into in the next one. I'll see you, and take care.